February, then they came about that they had to evacuate our camp to keep the Russians from freeing us. So on February 7th in
45?
44.
February?
45.
40? Okay.
You're right, 45. And they put us on the road. And there was not very much above zero, and there was snow on the ground. But they broke us. You know, you stop and think there was around 10,000 people in that camp. But you never seen anybody but your own little group. And how they staggered all this, I don't know. But as we went out, they gave each of us a one Red Cross parcel. And we had heard they was going to do that. And I had made me a carrying satchel out of a GI towel. I sewed it up the sides, and I had a strap from something, I don't know, to go around my shoulder. So then I got my parcel, I put that in there, and I still got that box too. A Red Cross box.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And that was kind of, although after the food was gone, I still used it to carry my stuff inside of this little pack sack. But they broke us up into, as I would guess, we had about 150 or 200 guys in our group, and I imagine all groups were about that size. How they did it, I don't know. How they staggered them out through the country, it's amazing how they done that. But anyhow, we'd walk. In my records, I've got data on that, but some days you might walk 10 kilometers. The longest day, I think, was 24. And but at night, they'd run you into a German farm up there in Poland. It was Polish, of course, but under German control. But these farms were more of a commune style. You had a huge, huge brick barn, and then other brick outhouses, and they would just run us into the barn. You'd sleep in the hay, and that's one reason you had to buddy up on this march, because you had your GI overcoat and one blanket. There were two of you, and if you sleep together, you had 2 blankets and 2 GI overcoats. And then when you got there at night, they would give you sometimes they might have given you some cabbage soup. I can't recall. Some days you didn't get anything to eat. But then in the morning, before you hit the road again, they'd give you you get lined up and they give you a cup of hot water. For the first few days, when that's one thing else you had in there. You had a little can of instant coffee. So you could make your little coffee in the morning until that ran out. But then you just plug along all day long, and then at night they'd run you into a barn at another place, and went that way. I don't remember how many days, the second or third day that we ended up, they ran us out into a field. It was on a drizzly night, no barn that night, no nothing, no hot water. And they just ran us in this field and told us we were going to sleep there. We didn't know why, but we were all fairly well soaking wet. And the next morning then, we didn't walk but a mile or so, and we walked down the hill, and here was a ferry boat, and just a narrow isthmus, what do you call it, inlet of water. And that was where some of the submarine pens, secret German submarine pens, was at Swinemünde. And so this was all timed so we could sleep up there and then make the ferry boat the next day. So they put us on this ferry, and we just went across this little 10-minute ride across the water, and then we hit the road again. And all this went on. In my log, I kept all the towns. I've got it plotted on 2 different maps. So I got my walking route plotted. And once in a while, maybe once a week, I don't remember, but they'd let you lay over on a nice day, let you lay over in a barn tent for a day's rest. And in one barn, there was a little I think it was a Polish lady. It was kind of, I don't know, a slave labor or what, but she had a pet chicken there. But we never had any meat. And some of these guys, when we was laying over that day, I think they put some of our guys in charge of boiling up some soup, a big old, like it's called a hog, in a big old kettle, making some vegetable soup. But anyhow, they caught this chicken, and I don't know how they deboned it, but it was so shredded up, there was not a sign of meat in that soup. But that poor old lady, she was wandering around calling for her chicken, which she never did find. But, I suppose we got little good out of it. I'll never forget that. I felt sorry for the old gal. Boy, she was broken-hearted.
Huh? I'm sure there probably wasn't much animal life running around that
No.
neck of the woods anyways.
No. Now, she had that old pet chicken. That had disappeared. But anyhow, this went on until in, Jesus, was it April? I got it in my log, April something or other. We ended up in a little town of,
Put your beer can down.
oh, they're right in front of me. A little town of Fallingbostel. It shows on a German map. And after all this walking of 2 months or whatever it was, they put us on a train, and we didn't know what the hell was going on. So we rode just for, I don't know if we rode for an hour. And why they did that, maybe just to show, for a show, so that they showed they hauled in by train instead of walking us. We ended up at, I think it was camp, I don't know what they call it, it'd be Stalag 11B, I think. And that was a British subjects. I suppose it was New Zealanders, and it was all British subjects anyhow. And they put us in there with these guys. And you could tell it was getting quite informal and all that.
What do you mean informal?
Well, just like there wasn't any mean guards, you know, stuff like that. And we were kind of wondering what was happening. And that was getting, probably, we stayed there a week or 10 days, I wouldn't say now. But didn't seem to be any great tension involved there. So anyway, then they put us on the road again, and this time they started walking us east and northeast. And again, it was just, you might say for spite. Just by that time, we learned the British and Americans were pushing across from the west. So they did that just to stop the British from liberating us. And we'd go just a few kilometers a day on that hitch. That might have been, I don't know if we walked 10 days that time, I wouldn't say. But one day then they allowed you to have fires. This first, I didn't mention this, but on that first trip, all through the cold weather there, from February 7th until the middle of April, never was once by a fire. Never one time. You crawl in the barns at night and stay warm at night, but you go dragging along and you're very underweight and very despondent, like, you know. Sometimes you felt, gee, it was worth running out and, you know, they would shoot you. But anyhow, the second one, then they let you gather little old wood scraps. And then out in these farmyards, we'd make a little fire, and you could get a few potatoes from their potato pile. They had their potatoes stored right out in the fields. They'd cover them with straw and then dirt. You can see these mounds. And they'd let us run out there and dig into a mound and get a few potatoes. So we'd be sitting around these little fires, and we'd have one of our old milk clim cans that had been emptied, boil potatoes in there, what have you, just having an easy life sitting around. One day we saw a fighter plane peel off, and we was all sitting around in a kind of a quite little tight little area, and it looked like it was coming right at us. We thought it was a German airplane going to strafe us, and I never forget, I bailed over a 6-foot chicken wire fence to run, and well, it turns out it was a Allies airplane. They was strafing some German car out on their highway right next door.
Wow.
So you can't, from that distance, boy.
You can't tell the
It looked
difference.
like he was coming right at us.
Huh?
Then we'd hear that kind of stuff. From then on, you'd hear it quite a lot. You know, hear them old planes buzzing. Them Germans, they weren't safe on the road in the daylight at that time. And then on about maybe the 2nd of May, it had to have been around in there. Why? we were sitting again in a farmyard, just sitting there, taking life easy. And here come a Jeep driving up. And turned out it was a British GI. And I don't know if he was an officer, but he crawled up on the hood of his Jeep and hollered out, said, "This area is now under the control of the British." And he says, "Just start making your way west on foot or however you can go, and you'll eventually meet up with help." And so the guards, just like that, the German guards disappeared. And one guy, I remember this, he said, "I've been wanting to do this a long time." He took one of the guards' gun and smashed it on the ground and broke the stock off.
This was a gun that a guard had just left sitting around?
Yeah, I don't remember if he took it out of the guard's hand or how he got it, but anyhow he did. And anyhow, the guards, that was the end of them, they was gone. And where they started heading west too, I wouldn't doubt. So anyway, the rest of that day, some guys went I didn't see too much of what went on, but I'm sure some of them went to town and took over stores and getting hooch and stuff like that. I walked over to a farmhouse and I thought, I'll see if I can find some eggs. So I don't know if it was a half mile or so, I saw a farmhouse. And I went up the door and this lady said, "Haben Sie Eier?" And I said, "Have you got eggs?" She says, your comrades have taken them all," she says in English.
And you were by yourself at this
Yeah,
point?
I just walked by myself, yeah. And so I went back and sat around. Then I was with a couple of other guys at that time when we was walking. So then the next day we started walking west. And I don't know if that was the day that I got a hold of this horse. Probably was. Because I don't know that we walked maybe one day until we got up with the British. But then and how I come upon this horse, somebody else abandoned him, I think, because he was windbroken. I don't know if you know what a windbroken horse, but
no.
He wheezes something terrible. He just can't get his breath.
Huh.
So anyhow, I grabbed him and I was riding him for a ways. But then I said, "I'm going to go up to this farmhouse and see if I can get a buggy." And again, there it goes. I thought in later years that was a kind of a low-down thing to do, to swipe some poor old farmer's buggy. But it turns out these British guys would have took it anyway, see. So anyhow, I rode up the lane there, maybe a quarter mile to this farmhouse, and there were some Russian prisoners there. And I went into the barn, because I knew enough about harnesses and things, and I was looking around for a harness. And so I was telling these Russian guys, motion them. And anyhow, they helped me to get a harness. And I see this hack sitting there, a single one-horse hack.
Uh-huh.
So I hooked the old horse up to it and drove it out of the farmyard. And these two British guys, that's why I say I didn't feel bad too, because they would have took it. These two British soldiers, they came out of they had taken over the whole farmhouse.
Really?
I don't know where the Germans were. That bloody, he took our buggy. And I just kept on down the lane, and I just ignored him. And so I went down and I picked up this other guy, two guys I think it was with me. And so we headed west, and that old horse was wheezing away, And then we probably rode a couple hours riding in the buggy. And come upon a British GI truck. So I just dropped the horse there, and I don't know, I suppose somebody took him over later. But it's awful the way things happen like that, But anyway, so we got on the truck and we ended up at a British camp, where they had some barracks, and a cookhouse. But they didn't have any food there. All they had was some bread and mustard, and we was hungry, boy. We was hurting. We was all hurting, in bad shape. And so I had bread and mustard sandwich. Boy, we were right out and puked it up. Hey. And then I can't remember if we went walking the next day some more, until finally we got with an American truck. And again, I think that time we had some beef for sandwiches, but again, your stomach wouldn't hold it, you just puke it up. But so they took us. Then It was before the 5th when war was declared ended, I think. But anyhow, they took us to an airfield, and they put us on one of the British bombers, either a Halley or a Lancaster, I don't know which one. See, they had the Lancaster and the Halifax.
Mm-hmm.
They loaded us in these old bombers, and they flew us to Camp Lucky Strike, which is a rest and recreation camp, you know. And they put us in there and fed us on a controlled diet and got us back in shape.
And this would have been about when?
Well, this had to have been after May the 5th, after the war was declared ended.
Okay.
Yeah, somewhere in middle of May probably. But they kept us there, geez, a couple of weeks. And boy, we gained weight. And I never did know what my weight was when we got liberated, but you couldn't hold nothing on your stomach. That's for sure. What little you could eat, scrounge potatoes and stuff is all you had. And God, one time I was rummaging around in this one barn we was in, and I found a little cache of carrots. And I ate some raw carrots, and boy, I crapped them out just like shitting shrapnel. I tell you, it hurt. Didn't even come any near digesting raw carrots. Your stomach was that bad. I never forget that.
Wow.
Didn't get no good out of them at all.
Well, did you guys have a lot of problems with sickness and diseases? And
A lot of diarrhea.
Uh-huh.
Yeah. And this one kid, I don't know whatever become of him, but one of the other guys took him under his wing, but he was sick, and I said, I'm never going to make it. He was weeping away. And this guy said, oh, you're going to be good. Just be careful. So on. And I often wondered